No, Kida. We are holding on page 301, Kufnon Aleph, at the bottom of the page, Vehine. So again, just to do, once again, a recap. I'm not going to do a full recap, because for that we of course have the archived videos. And of course, as we move along further, it's going to get harder and harder to do a recap on like 713 pages. But I'll just do a small recap. We started off, of course, by discussing of course, there's the question of what is hisbonenus, what is the concept of hisbonenus, which roughly translated is contemplation, but an analytical contemplation. But again, not to put definitions on words, instead better to find out what they are through Reb Hillel's words here. So we started off with that question of what is it, and why specifically through this way are we supposed to understand God? Now, in order to understand that, we went into the three parts of the intellect, Chachma, Bina, Das, collectively known as Chabad. That the Chachma is essentially when a thought is in the mind and it encapsulates the essence of an idea in its totality, but there's no letters to it. It's not wide at all. It's all held as a sort of a dot and a kuda, and you can't explain it to somebody else. Bina is when the concept is such that it is enclosed in letters. So when it is enclosed in letters, you can now explain it. You can now take that concept and give it over to somebody else. And we also spoke about how, as opposed to the Chachma, though, even though, yes, you can give it over to somebody else that way, the Chachma is higher because the Chachma is the essence of the concept, and the Bina is really just the concept in an exterior sort of way. And then we spoke about the third level, which is Das, which Das is the ability. It's not the same type of thing as a Chachma and Bina, which is really the concept in some sort of way, but rather it's disconnected from the concept. It's the ability to focus on the concept, to focus the Chachma, to focus the Bina. On a concept, we brought the allegory of if you have two people and they have essentially the same degree of talent and IQ and etc., but one person is very, very interested in the concept and one person has no interest in the concept. So even though the Chachma and Bina technically is the same, the fact that one person is very interested, his ability to sit there to concentrate on the subject matter, as well as his ability to sit there for a long time with that focus, is going to be much greater than the other person. And we spoke about the source of the Das being the will. Essentially, it's what was the wording we used? The will for the item at the time that he wills it, the desire for the item at the time that he desires it, and that connection of desire at the time he desires it is what is known as chush, and that chush is the source of das. Then we said, okay, in each one of these parts of intellect, it subsplits into three other aspects. And these aspects are depth, width, length. That the depth we spoke about is the nothing of the item. And depending on, that could be a different thing, depending on, for example, we spoke about the teacher and the student, that the depth of the teacher and the depth of the student is different, that the depth of the student is nullifying himself to receive from the teacher. And the depth of the teacher, the nothing of the teacher, is his ability to take away all the vast information in his mind and only concentrate on teaching what this student needs. But they're both really the nothing of one of the teacher, one of the student. There's essentially different aspects of nothingness. And then we brought down essentially now taking this concept of ein, of nothing, of depth, let's understand that we said that Chachma being a das, each one has a depth, width, and length. What is the depth of Chachma? The depth of Chachma, on top of the Chachma, there's something called the Koyach HaMaskil, the power of Maskil. And we're not going to explain, I'm not going to translate that word, because we'll just understand what it is, and I'll continue to explain it later as well. That the Maskil, which resides in the Lachluchis, in the moisture above the skull, above the membrane of the skull, that's where the Koyach HaMaskil, this power of Maskil, resides, and it's essentially a Hiyuli sort of power, meaning that it's an infinite power that doesn't exist, but it has in it every possibility for existence. So, for example, using Chachma, if I'm going to have an idea, right? What idea am I going to have? Let's say I have a problem, I need a solution, and I'm going to sit there and try to come up with what's essentially a Chachma, which a Chachma is, in other words, a new idea. Have a new lightning bolt, a new flash, what do you call it, like a new light bulb come up over my head, a new aha. So I'm going to end up with one particular idea, but any idea that might come into my mind, and also many ideas that will never come into my mind, are in this power of Maskil. The Maskil contains an infinite ability for ideas and thoughts, new thoughts. So now, depending on how much you're going to be, is going to be the nullification, the self-nullification, the nothing-guising of oneself, the better is going to come this idea, the better of an idea you're going to draw from there. But essentially, this Maskil has an ability for any sort of idea. And then he actually also tells us what the width of Chachma is without telling us that he's telling us what the width of Chachma is, which sometimes he'll do, so it can be a little confusing in that sense. But which we know this actually from the other beer, he actually more so says it more clearly. But so then from this comes what we said that we spoke about was the Barak HaMavrik, which is like the lightning bolt. Like we say, Chachma comes out like a lightning bolt in the mind. So this Barak HaMavrik, in other words, this actual lightning bolt of the Chachma into the mind, that is the width of the Chachma. In other words, it is the actual Chachma itself. And then you have the length of the Chachma, which is how the Chachma is going to go into the, well, actually, we'll let him say it in his own words, because he's going to talk about it more. But he uses the mashal that he uses, and we'll go over this briefly because it's important for the rest of what we're going to go over, is that this whole process is like a spring coming from under the water. That there's going to be the veins that are underneath the ground, right, that attach to what? To the aquifer, to this underground, to this vast underground pools of water, oceans of water under the ground. Now, however deep these veins are going to be into the aquifer, that's how much more, how much stronger of a flow is going to come out in the revealed spring, and also how much cleaner and purer it's going to be. So our Bill says the same thing comes to a thought or an idea. That the effort, which the effort is essentially self-nullification, the more the self-nullification, by putting yourself aside and putting effort into this, getting this idea, the stronger the effort, the deeper the veins, the stronger will be the chachma that comes into the mind, and the cleaner and purer it will be of mistakes and impurities. So now, 301, Kufnun Aleph, bottom of the page, Vehine. Vehine kol lanal. Hu inyan aimek chachma. This is the depth of chachma. Avol b'chinas reich the chachma. However, the width of the chachma. Who etzem nevias haseichel hagolim imkaire is the actual coming out of the seichel in a revealed way from its source. V'derech mashal mayin hagoli kanal v'nikra chachma shebechachma. So when it, just like the spring, the actual place where it comes out, it bursts forth from the ground, where it becomes revealed, that's the same thing in the chachma when this thought, when this idea becomes revealed in the mind, when it bursts forth into the mind, like you spoke before, the barak hamavrik, the lightning bolt. That is the width of chachma. And it's called chachma shebechachma. Chachma within chachma. Whereas, we spoke before, the depth of chachma is known as keser of chachma, the crown of chachma. So that's the depth and the width. So what's the length of chachma? Hu masha yesh b'keich hachachma lahashpil etzem haskolas inyan ula'albisha b'bchinas hesper debina. So the length of chachma is the power in chachma to bring this idea, this thought down, to essentially lower it, to be able to become enclosed in bina, which we spoke before. What's bina? Bina is the enclothing of the thought in letters so that it can be given over to somebody else. So that is the length of chachma, is its ability to go down, to be able, now remember, it still hasn't been enclosed in bina. Then we're already going into bina. But it's its ability to go down, to lower itself, to be able to become enclosed in bina. The inyan bina, and the concept of bina, like we said before, he metzius ta'amim esbaris la'seichel kanal v'amamtzi yisum ukeich ha'irich dechachma v'hu b'chinas bina dechachma hanikra b'sifri yeda haven dechachma. So if you ever hear sometimes in different places, Mamorim in different places, it uses the term haven dechachma, talking about the bina of chachma. And that's what we're talking about here, which the bina is the ability, the bina is the finding, basically reasons and explanations and essentially words, the words that explain, that give over this chachma to somebody else. And this, what allows this to happen is the bina of chachma, which is also known as the length of chachma, and also known sometimes as haven de chachma. V'hu b'chinas keitz hatacht in the yud, and this is the bottom spitz of the yud. So we know a yud, essentially yud is a very tiny letter, and it has a little point on top, and then it widens into a little kind of little circle thingamajiggy, and then a point at the bottom. So the top point is what? The top point is keser. That's the depth that allows it to pull down from the keich hamaskel on top of it. And then in the middle of the yud is the chachma shebechachma, the actual bursting forth of the chachma into the mind. And then the bottom point is the length of chachma, the bina of chachma, which allows it to go down into bina, allows it to go down into letters, into explanations and reasons. Fine. Who beginas keitza tach min yud asher shorshel milo neguf anakuda the yud. So this is the bottom point of the yud, which actually in its source is higher than the yud itself, because its source isn't in the yud, but rather its source is in the top point of the yud, in the keser of chachma, it's in the depth of chachma. Hanikr keser of chachma kanal, which is called keser of chachma, like we said before. Ki lefi erech ha'emek, shehu b'chinas bittul b'kei meichei lekabel nekeach ha'maskil, kach hu erech ha'bittul la'niach es atzma yu la'ashpia b'chinas bina. So, because remember, we spoke before, and this is why there's things he brings before, and then he stops, and then he brings it back in. That's why before he spoke about the teacher and the student. And there's two types of bittul, there's two types of nullification. There's the nullification of the student to the teacher, and there's to nullify himself to receive from the teacher, but there's also a nullification from the teacher to be able to give over to the student. And remember, this is really a cycle. Because if you teach me, right, I have to nullify myself as a student to receive from you. But now, if somebody else is going to learn from me, now I have to nullify myself in a teacher way, and he nullifies himself in a student way, and then he teaches to somebody else, and again, he nullifies himself in a teacher way, etc., etc. So the source of being able to give it over is directly related to how much the bittul was, to how much the nullification was in receiving it in a student way, in the chachma receiving it from the koyach hamaskil, from the power of maskil. So the stronger that will be the effort, right? The stronger will be the flow from the maskil. And in addition, also because that is the source for the lower bittul, so the length of chachma will also be stronger. So it's sort of like they say, they say that that a great leader has to know how to be a great follower, or a great teacher has to know how to be a great student. So it's the same sort of thing, because essentially, in order to be the ability for somebody to nullify himself, to give over to a student, he has to also be able to relate to the nullification of a student to a teacher. So it says that in the times of Moshe, that they found chachamim, people who had a strong chachma, but nevainim, which is like mish tzvuna, which is somebody who has a strong bina of chachma, which is the ability to give over. They couldn't find. In other words, implying that nevainim is something harder to come by than a chacham. That they said that chachamim, yeah, but nevainim they weren't. That this is a much higher ability. To be able to bring down and enclose the power of chachma in bina, in the letter of where it can be enclosed. Which is what the ability of having the chachma, like we spoke before. That its source is in the depth of chachma. From this you can also come up with new ideas. From when you hear a thought or an idea, a concept from the teacher. So someone who has a strong tavuna, a strong depth of chachma, not a strong length of chachma, sorry, is able to also come up with new concepts from the concepts that he heard from his teacher. Which we see, for example, in many different fields. For example, you have the Wright brothers, right? They came up with essentially the theory and proved it on how it's possible to fly by making the air pressure greater on the bottom than it is on the top. But then you had other people who came after them, who from their concept were able to come up with new concepts and further this idea by coming up with new concepts from the original concept. So that's the Havan de Chachma. וכן גם נמשך בבינה להמציא סברות חדש בשכל אחד. שזהו בחינת חכם בבינה. And also the chachma of bina, which we'll talk about later, is also going to be stronger. The ability to come up with new ideas within the same chachma. The kol zenikir novin, and all this is called a novin, like an ishtavunis. Shemavin davar mitoich davar, which means that he can understand a thing from within a thing. And this, in the times of Moshe, they could not find. In the times of Moses, they were able to find chachamim, people who had a strong chachma, meaning what? Meaning the middle of the yud, the etzem chachma, the chachma shebechachma, the actual chachma was very powerful. But the length of the chachma, which it sorts in the depth of the chachma, which this is what the tevuna comes from, they couldn't, which is a bigger deal to have, this they couldn't find. So those are the three things of chachma, the three elements of the chachma: depth, width, length. The depth, how it receives from the power of maskil. The width is the actual chachma itself, the barak mavrik, the idea as how it flashes into the mind, and then the length, which is the drawing down of the idea to where it can be given over into bina. So now we've understood that. Now let's understand the three parts, the same three things: depth, width, and length of bina. So now let's understand the three parts of bina. That just like by the chachma, these three things are depth, width, and length. What is the depth of the bina? Is achtus hasvara be'etzem haskola se'inyin sho'enu mos klau v'achibur mos hachachma b'mos habina v'nikra ayin shalayesh debina sho'oime b'chinas oimik hasvara b'tamtzitz. So the depth of the bina is the essentially unifying of the explanation with the actual concept itself, essentially receiving the actual concept itself into the bina. So you have to remember the length of the chachma, which gives it over into the bina. That's the nullification of the teacher, and then nullification of the student is the bina receiving it from the chachma, which it's really not a thing at all, like we said before. That something that's a nothing is like a corner, right? That a corner doesn't exist. It's either one wall or it's the other wall. So this part of bringing down the explanation or of receiving the chachma into the explanation is a non-existent thing, because it's not really there. But it's really just a connection of the essence of the chachma with the essence of the bina. So it's like a corner. It's the corner between the connection of chachma here and bina here. And if you remember, like the corner, we said it's either the south wall or the east wall. So the same thing. It's either the chachma or it's the bina. So that nothingness point in between where the chachma and bina meet is the depth of bina. And it is called the ayin of the yesh of bina, the nothing of the something of bina, which is the depth of the explanation and its origination point. To give a mashal for it, to understand this better, this concept better. So we take the example of a person who he has a great power of grasping and understanding the letters, whether it's spoken or read. And when he hears a lot of explanations from his teacher, from his master. He understands the explanations very well. But he's basically, it's like you say, he's not getting it, right? You have somebody who has, he understands all the explanations, all the enclosing, but he doesn't actually, but he's missing he's not getting the point. Which is similar to like somebody who sees he sees the king, right? And the king is dressed in his royal garments, right? And he'll bow to the king, Your Highness. And then he goes to the mikveh and he sees the king naked. And he does nothing. Who are you? In other words, he missed the point that the king is the essence, not the king's robe. So this is a guy who's bowing down to the king's robe, essentially, instead of the king. So what happens is, if you're missing the point, what happens is there is a certain lack of life in it. Because the main life force, the main driving force behind behind understanding of this, behind this bina, behind understanding of a concept is the getting of the point, or at least getting towards the point. Like it says that the chachma will enlighten. But somebody who has the ability to get past the explanations and grasp the actual etzem inyan, the actual essence of the thing, that is the power of the depth of bina. That this is the ability of the left brain to nullify itself. Remember, we spoke before, the right brain is a chachma brain. And that's why it tends to be artistic. In other words, it's more intuitive. Whereas the bina brain is the letter brain, and therefore it's more analytical. So essentially, if we were to talk in the human brain, it's the ability of the left brain to nullify itself to the right brain, to be bottle to the right brain. I'll give you a good example of this, actually, because there's certain subjects that it's sometimes hard to really, that it has. In other words, the etzem of the askala is something foreign. So a good example is in taking voice lessons. So the truth is, what the teacher is trying to tell me, what he's trying to convey to me, is something completely foreign to me. It's not like, like three concepts, together that are existing concepts that I've had, but rather it's a completely different concept. They're in singing, in chazanah, classical singing, there are certain, essentially, sensations in your body and things that you've never felt before. You've never used those muscles, those air pockets in your head, all these things. So essentially, he's explaining you, it's this kind of situation where he's giving you svaros, he's giving you explanations. And the explanations are not the actual thing, because it's actually impossible for him to explain you the actual thing. You sort of have to chop it. You have to, all of a sudden, you feel a certain buzz somewhere in your head, and you go, oh, that's what you're talking about. So somebody with a strong, who has a deep bina, who has a strong aimek of bina, a strong depth of bina, will perhaps has an easier time coming to this, because essentially you have to do, being that everything you're discussing, you're discussing, essentially everything but what the subject matter is. So Shlomo, I remember once we came up with an allegory for this, right? Is that if, let's say we have a game and I have to make dots, and I have to show you a dog, but I cannot actually draw the dog. I can't fill in the dog. I'm only allowed to make dots outside of the area of where the dog is going to be, right? So you'll find I'll make dots, right? I'm not sure. Then I have to make more dots. You know what? It looks like it might be some kind of animal, right? Once there's enough dots, there's a silhouette in there. And now your own brain is able to fill in what's inside of that. So it's the same sort of thing where you're doing these different exercises, you're making these different buzzing noises, and these different, and it's something you're trying to achieve, and you don't even know what it is. And then all of a sudden, you chop that thing. You're able to chop it. So that's sort of how it works with the explanations of Bina, and being able to grasp the essence of to grasp the Chachma through it, which essentially the whole Chayes comes through that. And it's the same thing, by the way. You can spend you can spend months and months doing, vocal exercises, and never understanding what, never getting the actual point, never getting what the thing was. So somebody who has this ability, so when he's hearing all these explanations with this from his master, from his teacher, the power of Chachma, the length of the Chachma is drawn down into it, becomes unified with the Bina, and he's able to draw down the Chachma through the explanations of the master. And it's interesting, he uses the term feels. And through this, he feels like he basically, like we say, he chaps, he grasps it, he gets it. The point of the Chachma, Hamalubush Bahem, that is enclosed in them, the dialogue. And this is enough of an explanation for that. The Bill feels. And therefore he has a great amount of enthusiasm, of liveliness in these letters, in these explanations, in these words. And this is the depth of Bina. And it's called, what do we call it? Just like the depth of Chachma was Keser of Chachma, the crown of Chachma. So too, this depth of Bina, its ability to nullify itself and therefore receive into itself the Chachma, is called the crown of Bina. That's the depth of Bina. And the width of Bina, which as you can guess is going to be Chachma of Bina. So we're already seeing how it works. In other words, that depth is another word for, another way of saying Keser, and width is another way of saying Chachma, and length is another way of Bina. What is the width of Bina? Just like by the Chachma, what was the width of the Chachma? Was the actual Chachma itself, the actual coming out of the Chachma into the mind. So too, what is the width of Bina is the actual Bina itself, the actual physical explanations, the revealed explanations. Right? Remember that the one was the ayin shalayesh, right? Because Chachma in general is called the ayin, a nothing. And Bina is called, as by comparison to the Chachma, is called a yesh, a something. And that's why the Chachma of Bina is called the nothing of the something. Whereas this is just the something. It is Chachma of Bina. It is just called yesh. It exists already. It's a physical explanation. This is the Chachma of Bina. As opposed to Keser, which Keser was the nothing of the something. And what is the length of Bina? הוא משבתיכל ההירד, שכל עמודה בסבר הזה, בלבושים דסברים שיינים, ומשלים שיינים, עד שיוכלו לסלבש אפילו בשכל עתינה. והוא בחינס בינה שבבינה. So what is the length of Bina? As you remember the Chachma, it's its ability to come down. So too, the length of Bina is its ability to come up with yet even more explanations. And not just explanations, but specifically explanations designed at bringing the concept lower and lower. And as well as with allegories, bringing different allegories. Until to the point where you could explain a concept to even a child. And this is called the Bina of Bina. So just to quickly recap those six, the three of Chachma, three of Bina. You have the depth of Chachma, right? The nothing of nothing, of the nothing. The depth of Chachma, the Keser of Chachma, which was its ability to nullify itself, which is it's the effort, which creates the ability for it to receive from the power of Maskil, from the essentially the aquifer, from the infinite pool of ideas that's above the mind. Then you have the width of the Chachma, in other words, the Chachma itself, which is also the Chachma of Chachma. And this is the Barak HaMavrik, the actual, the lightning flash, the flash of the Chachma in the mind. The actual introduction of the Chachma into the mind. Then you have the length of the Chachma, which is the Bina of Chachma, which is the ability to go down and to be able to become enclosed in a Bina. Which this is the bittul, the self-nullification of the teacher. Then you have, now that it's ready to go into a Bina, you have the depth of Bina, which is the ayin, the shalayesh, the nothing of the something, which is the nullification of Bina to be able to receive the Chachma into itself. Then you have the Chachma Shebabina, which is the width of Bina, which is the Bina itself, the actual explanation. And then you have the length of Bina, which allows it to be further, this is the Bina Shababina, Bina within Bina, that allows it to come down and become explained to the point where it could become explained to somebody very simple, to a child, to an infant. So for example, if you look at fire, right? Fire can be a very complex thing. Fire is not so simple. There's all kinds of molecules. There's the molecules that fuel it, the molecules that how it continues to burn, and there's all kinds of things. At the same time, sometimes you also need a little kid to just understand that you can't not to touch the fire because the fire is hot. So sometimes the very simple thing you bring down to the child this concept of fire being hot. So we can understand these three levels of Bina that we just spoke about from the physical allegory, the Nar Animshich Min Hamayim. So we spoke about the Chachma is what? Is the spring. And the spring has the veins that go down into the aquifer, that's the right depth, and then the width is how it comes out, the length is how it draws down once it's broken out. And then this, of course, turns into what? Turns into Bina, turns into a river, which also has three aspects to it. Ki Bina Nikra Nahar, because the Bina is called a river. The Nimshach Min HaChachma, and it is drawn down from the Chachma, Nikra Mayim Geidul, and it's drawn down from the spring, which Chachma is called a spring, like is known. Sheyesh B'Yaimek, that it has the depth. Shehu Ikari Luchim Kairei, which is the main part of it's going from its source. Shehu Merutzas Hamayim, this is the flow of the water. Anikar Shtreim, it's called the storm of the water. Shesham Melubash Koyach HaTeikiv Neviya Samaya. That the strength of the pushing of the spring is enclosed in this flow, and the stronger will be, of course, the flow of the Maya. The stronger will be the flow of the river. Like, remember, we spoke before that this is the chayus, the whole liveliness and excitement of the bina. So that is the depth of the river. The width. Is how wide, so you have this the main flow of the river, right, at its center, and then you have the width of the river on the sides. Now, generally, actually, I believe that's the way a river works, is that the center of the river is like a current that comes. The truth is, even the ocean runs with different currents underneath, and then outside of these currents is water that also moves, but not the same strength. So you have the river, you have the main power of its flow, and then you have how wide it is, the width of it. And the length, it is how it is drawn down in a far from its source. Right, so the river can go very far from its source because you have, for example, mountain springs, right, and that are way up high, and you have later on way downstream where it empties out into an ocean, for example. And generally, it works the same way. Is the source of how does water of a river flow? Down, right? The water of a river flows down. It goes from the source up higher up and comes down. Generally, the sea level. That through this length of the river, somebody even very far from its source, someone very far from the mountains. So the perfect example is we're here in the Alleghenies, right? And we have our Monongahela and Allegheny rivers, and even those start further up in other rivers and in other streams, ultimately in these mountain streams in the Alleghenies. And eventually, there's going to be people in Mississippi who are receiving the flow from these rivers. So somebody very far is receiving water from this source that's very far away and higher up. Just so it is in the revealed explanations of Bina. That it is a separate thing, it is a separate enclothing than the actual subject matter, than the actual concept. And it dresses the clothing to the essence of the concept. And the allegory given for it is like a river canal, we said. So the depth in it, the depth of the river, the pushing force, the life force of the river is the nothing of Bina, the Kesser of Bina. That in it is dressed the strength of how strong the nekuda of the chachma that it's receiving from flows, how strong it comes forth from the ground. And therefore it has a lot of liveliness. And the width is the actual concept itself, like it is in his mind, built the Eirich Klal without any bringing it down in further explanations and allegories that are designed to give it over to somebody else. In other words, it's the explanations of it as it is to himself, as it is to the student himself, in understanding what the teacher is giving over. He still didn't put it in allegories. Hakel be'etzem hasvara. And even if he's split up more explanations off of it, but in other words, explanations that are on the same level, that are on his own level, this is all still part of the same essential concept that he's received. Without additional enclothings. Only what? He widened it. So I'll give you an example. The example is, let's say I get an idea. So have you ever had this? You're brainstorming, right? You have a brainstorm session. Everybody's done one of those brainstorm sessions. Could be whatever it is, with regard to work, with regard whatever it is. Sitting there, brainstorming session, and all of a sudden, an idea comes out. Now at this point, we start. The next thing you need to do is the idea is just a flash. You got to start bringing it down to words. Even just for yourself to understand your own idea sometimes. You need a basic explanation. Then you start widening out the explanation to better understand this idea. Now, I haven't come up yet with any new ideas based on this idea. So, for example, we've seen this also where you'll have an idea and then say, let's widen out the idea. Then all of a sudden somebody will say, wait a second. This is perfect, but wait, I have another idea that came out. No, that's already, we're not there yet. This is just the widening of the bina as it is in itself. And the length is the ability of the river to come down, and the ability of the explanations to come down far from their source through different allegories. Until it can be received even in the mind of a child. I think we have enough time still for one more paragraph. If not, we'll start it and we'll start it again the next time. Now let's understand, we have the three parts of Chachma and the three parts of Bina, a depth, a width, and a length. Let's now understand the three parts of Das. Which, surprise, surprise, is depth, width, length. When we explained before, we spoke about what Das is, that is it's the kvetching, the contracting of the mind. To focus all of the power of thought, the sichli and intellect. To only think about this particular subject matter. To zone in only on this particular thing. So that's what Das is. And it's known that the place where the thought of a person is completely enclosed there, that he is there, he is all there. For example, have you ever been so zoned in on something, you're working on something, you're so zoned in on it, right, that you essentially forget to eat, you forget to sleep. It's 4 a.m, you don't realize it's 4 a.m. You're so zoned in that you're actually transported into it. You're not, almost you don't exist anymore. And we find that through that he's focusing and tying all of the self of his soul in this intellect, that he's thinking of it, that he's transported there, he's completely tied into it. A good story actually for this, and it's brought down in the Sefer Yemei Bereshis, which is essentially the early years, speaks about the early years of the Rebbe. So there's, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember. I don't have it right here with me. I don't remember the exact wording. But the Rebbe was as we know, the Rebbe was very close to his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe. And all of a sudden, one day, the previous Rebbe turned to the Rebbe, or to the Ramash as he was known then, and he said, maybe it's time to go to, this was in Brooklyn. And he said, maybe it's time to go to Eretz Yisrael. All of a sudden, he turned and said, maybe it's time to go to Eretz Yisrael. And so the Rebbe says that he told the Shver that, that he said, but there's so much work to be done here. We still have so much we need to accomplish here. So he said that the previous Rebbe got a faraway look in his eyes, and a big, big, big smile. And he said, "Nu ashena machshava." He said, "Nu, a beautiful thought." And he said that. So on this, the Rebbe comments on this moment, and he uses he's a wordplay here. He says, it says, Atzmais Yosef Helum Mitzrayim, that the bones of Joseph, right, they brought up out of Egypt to Eretz Yisrael. So he uses a wordplay, and he says, Atzmos Yosef, the essence of Yosef Helum Mitzrayim was the essence of Yosef. In other words, that the Frierdiker Rebbe at that point, when he had that faraway look in his eyes, that big smile, his whole self wasn't because in thought he was in Eretz Yisrael. He was completely in thought in Eretz Yisrael, so at that point, the essence of Yosef was in Eretz Yisrael. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in Eretz Yisrael. So that's just an interesting related story to this concept. If you look at Madregas Minya's Kashrus, we see different levels in this connecting of the das. Keep it cut on, because in a child, even though we connect his das to something, a kid wants a lollipop, right? And of course, the kid, when he wants a lollipop, he really wants a lollipop. It's all about that lollipop. Very easily, he can be seduced to some other, whatever it is, an ice cream, a toy, right? And a kid, lollipop, right? Generally, with a kid, if you'll show him something else, he can very easily forget about the lollipop, and now he's thinking about this other thing. Masha ain't game begadol. However, a grown person, it's not so easy to seduce him to something else. So, for example, if a grown person wants a Chevy Suburban, right? If he wants a Chevy Suburban, and you tell him, well, how about this Lamborghini? It's a lot more expensive, right? And he's going to tell you, right, my fat behind will not fit in a Lamborghini. I want the Suburban. And you'll tell him, I'll tell you what. How about you get this pickup truck? Because this pickup truck, your fat behind will fit in this pickup truck, right? However, what? What's the problem with it? It won't fit your family, right? Whatever. So, but now on the other hand, if it was a child, right, and he wants a Tonka Suburban, and you say, how about this Hot Wheels Lamborghini? Yeah, right? Sure, that's what I want. So, a grown person, why? Because he has, what should I say? Let him say. Because he is tied with the depth of his das. Right, we're talking about depth with length. So he's tied with the depth of his das to the thing that he wants. What is the aymek of the das? What is the depth of the das? Now let's define it. So it is the bittul, right? To essentially, it's the bittul to this, to which comes to the ratzon, to the thing that he wants. And through this das, he's able to actually come to the etzem hadavar, the actual thing, like we said before, the atzmos Yosef Elum Mitzrayim, that the essence of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, at that point was in Eretz Yisrael. So, and not only that, but it influences the other parts of the. Because based on the how tied the das will be, that's how tied the chachma and the bina will be also, right? Shebechinas haskolas etzem hadavar nika chachma gamkin eine elis pashus mi etzem hadavar, Because remember that the thinking about this thing, the chachmatizing about it, right? Holding in your mind as a chachma or a bina or whatever, is also only an extension of the etzem of the thing. It's not the etzem of the thing. It's not the essence of the of the item. It's just an extension of it. So through the das being connected with it, so actually the chachma and the bina also become miskasha. They become tied in that same way, and through that, where you can reach the actual etzem inyan, the actual essence of the thing. And through the depth of das, right? He affects in his soul a deep rooting, a good and deep rooting in the essence of this thing that he wants. And because of this, and through this, because he's completely connected to the thing that he wants at the time that he wants it, right? The chush, like we said before, which is the source of das. So he's able to draw this down so that the Keich HaMaskil will do its thing, and the Chacham will do its thing, and the Bin will do its thing in the strongest and best and purest possible way. And from this depth, automatically, when the depth is the way it should be, automatically the width and the length will also be the way they should be. Which, by the way, you'll notice he does this. He says it's about the das. But in general, when he brings such a concept, he's not only talking about the das, he's assuming you're going to make the connection that in general, the stronger the oimik is, right, that bittul, that receiving of the Talmud from the Rav, the receiving of the student from the teacher, that upper bittul, the stronger that's going to be, is going to affect that the width, right, the etzem inyan, the actual thing is going to be the right way, and that the lower bittul, going down to the next level, it's also going to be the right way. What? Because behold, what is the reicha of the width of das? It is the ability to tolerate the opposite. What does he mean? That we see with a child that all the time that even though he can be easily seduced to some other knickknack, some other candy, some other thing than what he wants, Nikol Mokim still calls man. That as long as this hasn't happened yet, he's not able to tolerate the opposite. So I'll explain in a minute. But in a grown up, mitzad ha'omek sheyesh b'das kanal mikol makom hina iyan isen sheyuchol lisbol ha'hepech v'lo yeh nizus m'kayim mikra. In other words, essentially, it's the concept of an adult who not only can he not take him away from it so easily, but also he's willing to give something up to get this thing that he wants. Right? I'll give you an example. Generally, people work for what reason? Right? So that they can go broke paying for their children to go to yeshiva and buy lots of svarim to learn from, right? Alavai. But no. People work a lot, so we should have a better lifestyle, right? We should be able to buy nice things and enjoy them, right? We should. In the meantime, wait a second. You're working. The thing you're doing is itself, in essence, contradictory to your goal. Why should I work? What, am I crazy? I'm working, so I should be able to have nice things and have a good time. But here I'm working. How am I going to have nice things and have a good time? It's actually 10 o'clock, so we are going to continue. I guess we'll retrack a little bit into the depth and the width of das, and we'll continue, of course, with the length of the das, and we'll see you, God willing, next Tuesday.